Hello and welcome to this, our feature match area. We have, well, at least one familiar face here that you might know. Kenji Egashira, known as Numot the Nomi on Twitch, a regular Magic streamer, up against Mahendra Raval. Both these players 2-0, and realistically, I think that Kenji has a couple of buys here, so this may be his first match actually playing here at GP Atlanta. And we've got our deck list in front of us. I kind of like the look of what Kenji's got going on here. It looks like he's largely a base green deck, but he's got a couple of Cloud Blazers, and he is playing them.
Oh yeah. 10 forest and 5 plains, indicating that it is indeed base green-white. But when you have 2 copies of Cloud Blazer, possibly the best gold uncommon in the format, and yeah, he also has 2 attune with either to splash them, you don't pass that up. Like, I like a Muldrafter. I like a Muldrafter even better when it gains 2 more life. So he added 2 islands, and with the 2 attune with either, he can easily get the mana to cast his Cloud Blazers.
We see the first attune with Ether on the very first turn here. Kenji having a look at his hand, figuring out which mana he needs to get set up sooner. I'm sure that's the sort of thing that when you've got a bit of time during your buys, you plan out some of your plays. They can be a little bit scripted. His opponent, Mahendra Raval, started on a mountain, and by the looks of things, he's on a red-black aggro deck with just 16 lands, 8 mountains, 8 swamps. It's a bold move, but if it pays off, then, well, aggression can be very, very potent in this format.
Yeah, I mean, as we saw in the previous round, where the game basically ended when people still had 4 lands on the battlefield only, we're attacking with 3-drop creatures. They can hit hard, especially these Renegade Freighters, and the pump spells all come at a big rate, so the game can be over quickly, and this is one of the best turn 2 plays in the format.
Yeah, we were talking before we went live about cards that we really want to open in this sealed deck format, and Smuggler's Copter right up there. As the first player of the game, it's going to be a very potent threat. Brazen Scourge coming down and attacking for 3, but Kenji's going to be able to attack for 3 in the air and loot with that Smuggler's Copter, assuming that he's got any creature whatsoever to crew it, because it's just the 1 crew cost. 9-arm Cobra, yep, that'll do it.
That will work.
Immediately taps it to crew, and every time Smuggler's Copter attacks or blocks, it's not even about dealing combat damage, you get to loot. So you get to draw a card and then discard a card, and that kind of card filtering plus a flying threat means that Smuggler's Copter, one of the premium cards in Standard as well as in Sealed.
Absolutely. And even though I know that a Copter is not exactly a plane, this is a situation where we do have snakes on a plane.
Call Samuel L. Jackson, we have a problem here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Smuggler's Copter is a bit pushed, I have to say. A 3/3 flyer for 2 mana is already an insane rate, especially when it turns on some of the Artifact Matter synergies. But getting to loot and improving your draw steps, right, getting closer to your best cards, tossing out excess lands for fresh cards, it just does so much. But at least Raval has a Brazen Scorch, which may allow him to enter a damage race, and who knows, I also see a Chandra's Pyrohelix in hand. That could take down Narnam Cobra, which might stay back on the next turn to block. So we could be in for, well, a reasonable damage race, because Raval definitely had some fine early creatures of his own as well.
And Nature's Way looks to be the pickup there for Kenji Egashira, and Spice-Side Infiltrator on the other side of the board. An easy enough one to kill off with that Nature's Way if he so chooses.
Yeah, even if Raval would play, I don't know, a 100/100 creature, that doesn't exist, of course, but suppose, then Kenji could still use Nature's Way along with the Death Touch of Narnam Cobra to take it down. That's an interaction that may not matter this game, but in general it is definitely relevant.
Goes for Hunt the Weak as his choice for killing off the 1 untapped creature on the battlefield. Gets a +1/+1 counter on that Smuggler's Copter, and in your experience, Frank, how much difference is 4 toughness rather than 3 in this format?
Well, there are definitely several instant speed removal cards, such as Harness Lightning, Welding Sparks, or Essence Extraction that all deal 3 damage. Some can deal more, for instance the Welding Sparks or the Harness Lightning, depending, but it could easily matter. Now, this Hunt the Weak was a safe play to make for Kenji, because even though Raval had a single red mana open, there's not a single red card for 1 red mana that can boost a creature. There's Build to Smash, but it only works on attacking creatures. And now Raval just passed the turn with Unlicensed Disintegration in hand. That's the Murder with, well, upside if you have artifacts, which he currently doesn't.
Riparian Tiger coming down here for Kenji. That one a straightforward 4-4. He's going to get some energy. It has trample, and he can start spending energy when attacking with that Riparian Tiger in order to give it +2/+2 until the end of turn, making it a giant threat.
Yep. Kenji might expect some kind of removal spell here, but he's still content to crew up the copter and try to get in. One of the reasons possibly is that only Unlicensed Disintegration is a card to worry about, right? All the other instant speed burn spells would only deal 3 damage, so it's still fairly safe to try to get in, even with all the untapped mana. I did love the flavor win there. There's like a tiger piloting a helicopter, you know, with some kind of conductor's hat on the tiger.
I like it, I do. I like to imagine that a lot of these vehicles, their crew cost is how heavy they are to push, because they've all run out of fuel and you're just sort of shoving them at each other.
Well, meanwhile, there's a Lawless Broker. Just a 3/2 creature. When it dies, you get to put a +1/+1 counter onto another creature.
I kind of like that one. It's a solid body that does something relevant when it gets killed off.
Yeah, kind of the bread and butter of your creature base. Nothing special, but also not too bad. Even though 3/2 creatures aren't perfectly sized in this format, they typically trade down for 2 drops, and then there are many 4 drops that they can't really attack into.
So here's that Nature's Way. Worth noting that Nature's Way is not a fight. It's simply this creature deals damage equal to its power to target creature your opponent controls. Also, you know, on top of that, you get a few extra abilities. So Kenji Egashira is going to be able to attack with Vigilance here with his Tiger, and that makes life a lot worse for Mahendra Raval. He's not even going to be in a position where he can do much in the way of racing. Chandra's Pyrohelix here, dealing with the Nanam Cobra just as well. That wasn't the one targeted with Nature's Way. And an extra point to Kenji. Kenji is on just 7 life, but looking in a relatively commanding position, at least on the board.
Yeah, that Tiger, especially when it gained Vigilance thanks to Nature's Way, is dominating here. Raval really couldn't block. It also has Trample, so it don't really accomplish much. What Raval needs to do here, he has
a Fleet Wheel Cruiser,
but that's not going to be enough. Right? It becomes a 5/3, and then he can attack with both, but then Kenji just blocks the Lawless Broker, falls to 2, and kills Raval on the swing back.
Welding Sparks in hand. Unfortunately, things not quite working out in terms of getting an artifact in play and having mana sorted.
No, but Raval could potentially pass the turn, right? Block the Tiger with the Lawless Broker, and then deal 3 more damage with Welding Sparks to take it down, even if Kenji pumped it with energy. Yeah, if Raval plays Fleet Wheel Cruiser, that also doesn't play the best defense, because it becomes an artifact creature when it enters the battlefield, but it is no longer an artifact creature when it would block on the next turn. And a 5/3 is not a good blocker for a 6/6 trample. What's the last card that Raval had? There's the Fleet Wheel Cruiser, the Welding Sparks, and another black card.
Looks like he's lining up to put this cruiser on the battlefield.
No, he's passing the turn, going for the Welding Sparks line. Now, if Kenji is, well, if he can kind of sniff out what's coming, if he can sniff out the Welding Sparks, maybe he doesn't even want to attack here, in order to not give Raval a way to use all of his untapped mana. But Kenji just goes for it. I guess when you have a Sky Swirl Harrier as a follow-up, a single removal spell is not all that bad, because you also got to deal 4 trample damage in the process, and now that Harrier is going to be lethal, even a Fleet Wheel Cruiser is not going to stop it.
Yeah, Mahendra on 1 life here.
Now Kenji has to worry about build to smash here. If Raval has the +3/+3 and Kenji doesn't block, well, Kenji's dead. But yeah, if Raval doesn't have it, then you give up the opportunity to win the game. And Kenji says, well, if you have build to smash, I'll lose. If you don't, then I'll just kill you with the Sky Swirl Harrier.
Yeah, I wonder whether or not Kenji would have been able to sniff out that based on the way that plays had gone in previous turns. I'm not sure that there were any moments that it was a slam dunk earlier on in the game for Mahendra to be casting Build to Smash, so he had to at least consider it, but ultimately he had a shot at winning the game, took it, and was able to do so.
Yep. So now it's time for sideboarding. Let's see if the players have something in particular in their sideboards.
We're going to jump across to one of the other matches while those guys are sideboarding. Just get a chance to see Stephen Neal against Soohwang. This is still a game one, and Soohwang in a pretty solid spot here. He's got some vehicles in play and indeed creatures to crew them, while Pia Nalar is in play. No artifacts for her to be able to pump. Presumably that Thopter already done its work.
Yep. Yeah, this could easily be lethal if Neal doesn't have some kind of instant way to destroy creatures, because Soohwang could play a creature, crew the Renegade Freighter, then also crew the Skyskiff, give his Weldfast Monitor menace, and then attack all out with everything that he has. Given that Neal is already at 5 life, and there is some evasive abilities, trample, flying, or menace coming in, it's gonna be hard for Steven to even survive this attack, let alone get back into the game. But he does have 5 untapped mana, lots of cards in hand. There could be, say, an unlicensed disintegration. To destroy a creature.
With 5 mana, including, he's got energy and he's got an ether hub, so the world's his oyster in terms of things that he can potentially threaten. But right now, his bigger concern is there does have to be a spell.
Tidy Conclusion will put an end to the Renegade Freighter.
But he's left with just a single creature in play, and it's not as if Suangim's board is now decimated. He still has plenty of action there going on.
I also fell to 2 life, and that Skyskiff may be lethal on the next turn. Right, if Soohwang plays a creature, crews up the skiff, attacks with all 3, Steven has to find an answer for all 3 attackers. Sure, he has some mana untapped, and he has a Welding Sparks in hand. That's one answer. He has a block with the Spireside Infiltrator, but then he needs another instant speed removal spell, and he does not.
All right, Suangim there. Black-red aggression, it seems to be a popular choice in our feature match area this round at least. And I can kind of get behind that. I mean, we spoke about the potency of bombs and the fact that sometimes the best way of dealing with a bomb is not giving people time. I would warrant that some of the red-black decks, that's kind of what they're doing.
Yep. Yeah, but you can still adjust while sideboarding. If I look, for instance, at Kenji's sideboard, he has 1 copy of Fragmentize that he may be interested in boarding in. He already has an appetite for the Unnatural in his main deck as an instant speed Naturalize, but especially with Raval being on the play and having powerful aggressive artifacts such as the Fleetwheel Cruiser, but also plenty of other vehicles and artifact creatures. Maybe having some cheap ways to deal with big opposing threats, so you can claw back into the tempo game, may be valuable to have.
One interesting note, actually, looking at Raval's list, is he does have a built Smash, but it started out in his sideboard. It's one of those cards that when I first saw it, I thought that it was so limited in terms of when you could play it that it was just potentially not good enough. I'm kind of coming around on it.
It's a bit deck dependent because it only does something when you're attacking. So especially when you don't have a super aggressive deck and when you are on the draw, I don't love having it in my deck. But whenever I have a somewhat aggressive deck with plenty of artifact creatures and I'm on the play, I am generally happy to see it in my opening hand.
High Spire Artisan there, attempting the block on the Lawless Broker coming from Mahendra Raval. There is the trick to be able to deal with the 1/4, and I actually don't mind. Normally using a trick just to kill a guy doesn't seem that exciting, but a 1/4 kind of a problem for an aggressive red-black deck. Though I guess if a 1/4 is a problem, a 2/4 also not ideal.
Yeah, Rush of Vitality, it's a fine combat trick. +1/+0, lifelink, indestructible. It does the job, but Raval wasn't able to really develop his board with additional threats. I think he has a hijack in hand.
He does. He has 3 of them in the sideboard.
Effect.
Dakara Peafowl, the 1 creature in play for Kenji Egashira. There you can see it. It's a 2/4 bird, but it's a bird that has to spend a bit of mana to fly. And also we now have Riparian Tiger for Kenji Egashira. Had a big impact in Game 1. We'll find out how well it plays in Game 2.
All right, Kenji playing it somewhat safe here. If Raval had nothing in hand, then Kenji could easily attack with the Peafowl and then still have the Tiger back to block the Lawless Broker. Given that Raval hasn't really been playing many cards, Kenji is probably thinking, well, there's probably some tricks. I don't really want to play into that, or perhaps lose my Riparian Tiger on a block to some kind of trick. let's just keep the P-file back as a blocker, and then I can start attacking with a Tiger and possibly give Raval less of an opportunity to use whatever tricks he might have. Kenji doesn't know what it is, but given that Raval hasn't been using his mana, there's bound to be something coming. Well, that's a start.
Yeah, unlicensed disintegration for the second game in a row, killing off a key threat, but in each occasion, Mahendra has not been able to have the single artifact in play that really juices up that instant speed removal. An extra 3 points of damage when you kill something if you have an artifact in play, a big deal.
Yep.
Both of these players hitting their mana pretty well this game. We see there Attune with Ether gaining some extra energy for Kenji Egashira in addition to sorting out his lands. For Mahendra, in a deck that already starts with 16 lands, I can't help but wonder if having quite this many lands in play means that he's a little flooded.
Yeah, there are not many mana sinks in this format, I've discovered. Whenever you draw too many lands, there are a few ways, like activated abilities of creatures, to put that mana to some extra use.
Now, is there anything that you like more in this format than casting a Cloud Blazer and drawing another Cloud Blazer with it? It's got to be up there on the list of fun things to do with Kaladesh.
I mean, if you have a Panharmonicon on the battlefield before, that's even better. And then play a Wispreaver Angel to blink your 2 Cloud Blazers. You know,
oh my goodness.
Draw 8, gain 8.
Yeah, I mean, at that point...
And then, I mean, I'm sure we can come up with even better things. But
this is a pretty good start.
Yes. Especially when Raval is not really able to add much to the board. Still that hijack in hand, but that Act of Treason effect is only good when you are in a tight damage race. And so far, Kenji's still at 19 life. It's
soon to be 21.
Yeah. And Raval doesn't really have any bombs in his deck that allow him to win a late game, right? I see a Key to the City, which, you know, could be nice, but Kenji's still at a very high life total. I see a Midnight Oil that is kind of nice in the late game to draw 2 cards a turn, but no huge creatures or expensive cards to kind of come back from this board state.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough one. Also worth noting, of course, that even the Spontaneous Artist comes down and means that future threats can potentially end up with haste, just at the cost of 1 energy. Kenji Egashira, he's got lots of cards in hand and lots of flyers. It's going to be tough for Mahendra Raval to meaningfully block in this particular game.
Yep. Yeah, Raval also can't really attack effectively into the Nornam Cobra. Yeah, Kenji has so many cards in hand. It's unreal. He has all the tools. Can just choose whatever he wants to do. Maybe a Hunt a week to kill some opposing creature. Yeah, get in for some damage. Even though Raval doesn't even have an artifact as a target for the Appetite for the Unnatural. If worst comes to worst, Kenji can always destroy one of his own creatures to gain 2 life and perhaps survive some direct damage spell. Not that this is a likely thing to happen. Well, Hunt a Week effectively gets countered by Rush of Vitality, giving Indestructible to the Spontaneous Artist. But Kenji wasn't really relying on that card all that much.
And the +1/+1 counter is still kind of relevant.
Yep.
And there's life gain going on both sides here. Even though we're talking about Kenji Egashira having the superior board state, it's going to take him a little bit of time to whittle down the life total of Mahendra Raval. 2 copies of that Rush of Vitality already played. There's actually a third one that started out in the sideboard for Raval. Lots of 3-ofs in his pool. Interesting kind of choice to figure out how much space you have for combat tricks.
Well, there's Thriving Rhino coming down. All these thriving creatures, and a Rhino in particular, have gone up in my estimation as I've played with them a bit more. By itself, it can be a 3/4 for 3 mana after the first attack, which is already a super good rate. But when you assemble multiple energy creatures and just have some pool of energy, you have all the options. You can just choose where to spend your energy towards. And often when you have 2 thriving creatures, you can just make 1 big guy with 2 +1/+1 counters and 1 smaller guy that just jump blocks at some point. And all these options, I love that flexibility in all these thriving creatures. I like picking them more highly now than when I started thinking about this format.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that one of the interesting things that I found about this format is energy is kind of taking the place of mana sinks in some respects. You don't necessarily have as many things to do with your mana in the late game, but if you've pulled up some energy, you can do some pretty cool stuff.
Yep.
Couple of attacks here for Mahendra, but Kenji Egashira not overly worried. 21 life that he's working with means that he can afford to take a hit here and there. 15 points apiece now, but the swing back here could be substantial. He's just got to think about a couple of cards in Raval's hand in terms of if he wants to commit everything or just some of those attackers. Spending a couple of energy to make Thriving Rhino into a 3-4.
Yeah, it's not lethal yet, but it is almost certainly going to be lethal on the next turn. And Kenji still has the appetite for the natural in hand as well as an impeccable timing. So he's not worried about some kind of fleet wheel cruiser, suddenly lots of haste damage shenanigans. He has the answers in hand.
Now there is a hijack here, and Thriving Rhino, the biggest creature to borrow for a turn. Starts out as a 2-3. It's a 3-4 now. Hijack, it looks a lot like Threaten, but it can take artifacts that are not creatures, which occasionally becomes relevant if there's a module or similar in play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this looks like the due diligence attack here. Raval sees that, well, he's facing 7 power worth of flyers on the next turn, and he can't really deal with them. So he's probably just trying to get Kenji down to as low a life total as possible to say, hey, I played against Kenji and I got him down to, well, still in the single digits. Kenji falls down to 9.
Yeah, Hijack, one of those cards that feels great when you play it to win the game, but almost any other time where it's mid-game it can feel a little bit less exciting. And here come the big swings. One more spell coming from Mahendra Raval, but there's the handshake. Kenji Egashira advancing to 3-0 here at GP Atlanta.
Double Cloud Blazer, still good.
Who knew? Turns out pretty much everyone that read the cards because it's just a fantastic, a fantastic Magic card. Yes, you need a little bit of time to get things going, and in some decks it can be a bit of a stretch to get the mana working, but for Kenji here, it seemed pretty academic.
Yeah, it's one of the best cards to splash in the format. There are some ways, such as the Attune with Either to easily splash a color, also Prophetic Prism, Wild Wanderer. And given that it's a 5 mana card, you can pretty easily put it in and, well, find the land at some later point in the game.
So now we get a chance to see a little bit more of Stephen Neal up against Suangim. Both of these decks red-black, and we saw Soohwang kind of with the advantage game 1 in terms of aggression. This time round he's got Pia Nalar in play. Last time it was the other side of the table where Pia was doing her work, and with lots of flying artifact creatures, not just the Thopter, but a couple of others going on there, it means that the pump ability of Pia Nalar gets that much scarier. You can pay some mana, pump the power of one of your artifact creatures, and that means that Stephen Neal on a kind of short clock here.
Yeah, Stephen also has to be worried of that no block ability from Pia. Looks like Soohwang is not using it and is content to just trade off here. Stephen had the option of attacking on the last turn with Renegade Freighter, I believe, but chose to keep it back as a blocker. Because he's at 10 life, Soohwang is at 20 life, Soohwang even had the better board, so then you just have to play defensive. Another reason is that Stephen had the Oval Chase Daredevil, which can come back from the graveyard. So that will also be a nice way to well, get some additional value later on. Okay, if Stephen has nothing here, then he may be dead. If Soohwang activates Pia Nalar, sacrificing the Thopter token on the Foundry's creature, attack with Snare Thopter and then pump it twice. But Stephen does have 3 mana up.
It looks like there is also a Welding Sparks in hand, so it's not over, but it's certainly not looking great for Stephen Neal.
Oh, and Stephen is really hoping that Soohwang now makes the play that I mentioned, because then Soohwang has effectively sacrificed the Thopter token for no reason at all.
Well, it looks like there's a different plan coming from Suangim. If you're looking for something nice to do with your 5 mana, another option is simply kill your opponent's creature and get stuck right in.
That'll work.
I guess this is kind of the dark side of when you go, I'm going to just be an aggressive deck and try and go underneath the decks with bombs. When you play against another deck that's aggressive, someone's bound to end up on the defensive, and that's not necessarily where you want to be.
Now Stephen passed the turn, still has a Syndicate Trafficker to block Pia Nalar. He probably has another instant speed removal spell that he will likely play on the Thopter. But Soohwang also has plenty of cards in hand. I believe there's a Rush of Vitality, which could give one of his creatures indestructible, along with a Spireside Infiltrator and a Wildfast Monitor.
The Thopter comes in. A nice low-pressure attack for Suangim. He can threaten to do more damage with Pierre if he so chooses, but given he can't quite make lethal there.
I mean, he could if he wants to, but given that Stephen passed with so much mana up, Soohwang has to expect some kind of trick here. He waited. Now it has indestructible, and now it will get pumped to 3 power. Sweet. Some good timing there by Soohwang. If Soohwang had pumped before, perhaps Stephen would not have played the removal spell. You always want to play the indestructible instant in response to some damage card, so good timing.
Straightforward victory there, and that's the last of our live matches going on here in this round. It's been an interesting one. I think that the one sort of key notable for me that I've seen in this particular round has been the preponderance of red-black decks that we've seen in the feature match area. Now, obviously, we've got a long day ahead of us. I'm sure that we're going to see lots of different color combinations, but red-black is not necessarily something that in every sealed deck format I would expect to see quite so much of. Interesting to see that the aggressive route's being taken here.
For sure. Well, red-black has good removal spells. That's always valuable in sealed, especially when you have 6-packs to get bombs out of. It has good early drops that mostly care about artifacts. Red-black as an archetype is often about artifact matters. Especially in sealed, when you have 6 boosters to get some sweet vehicles out of, you can also put those in, and you have a very powerful uncommon in Unlicensed Disintegration. So together that is a coherent strategy. It's fast, it's aggressive, and as we saw, the game can easily be over by turn 6 or so, where the key cards were 2 drops, 3 drops, and 4 drops, and not so much the 6 mana bombs.
Yeah, I guess that obviously if you have the 6 mana bombs, suddenly your game plan changes quite a bit, but if your backup plan is, I've got efficient creatures and removal, that's a pretty good plan.
Indeed it is. Now at the moment we see Chris Pikula there on the left side of your screen, playing against Micheal Ardoin. I think Marshall and Megan will
Marshall and Maria.
I'm looking at them both sitting together.
So by the sounds of it, we're going to get a chance to get a look at one of our other matches going on in the feature match area, some bonus magic for you. We're going to zip across and get a chance to see the 4th of our 4 feature matches that are going on in the area. So let's see if we can hop across and see a little bit more Kaladesh Sealed. So Gregory Micheal on the left-hand side of our screen, Pierre-Christophe Mondon on the right. Slightly different camera angle here, but we'll try and bring you all the details. Riparian Tiger already with a +1/+1 counter on it, and 10 energy for
10?
Gregory Michel. That is a crazy amount of damage potentially coming through. Fragmentize here on a Prakata Pillarbug. That's going to make life a little bit easier for Gregory, who is under the cosh here. He's a game down and on just 4 life, up against yet another red-black deck going on.
Yeah, 10 energy is a bit of an overkill. I believe it was due to a Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot. That's the green puzzle knot in the graveyard. The life gain of that puzzle knot was certainly relevant, given that Gregory is at 4 life right now. But
and this is game 2, so it may well be that the puzzle knot was brought in against a very aggressive red-black deck.
So this is potentially lethal if Pierre-Christophe taps his Spireside Infiltrator to crew up his Ballista Charger, dealing 1 damage in the process, putting Gregory down to 3, then attacks with both of his creatures. Ballista Charger has a trigger to deal 1 damage to a creature or player. That can deal 1 more to Gregory. And then, well, I guess it's not lethal yet, because Gregory can just block both creatures, but then it means that Gregory cannot double block the Ballista Charger with both of his creatures, meaning it's going to be a jump block on the Ballista Charger, and the Filigree Familiar will be happy to die. So
yeah, the Filigree Familiar, of course, you get to draw a card when it dies. Pretty relevant. Looks like there are a couple of cards in hand already for Mondon, but he's certainly not going to be sad to get an extra one in there.
And if Pierre-Christophe does have another creature in hand that he can play and then crew the Ballista Charger, then this should make for a lethal attack. He probably does not have that.
crunch time, though, for Gregory Michel. He needs to do a fair amount to turn things around here. Nope.
Yeah, the one green mana that Gregory is representing here could mean Blossoming Defense, that's a +2/+2 and Hexproof instant, or Ornamental Courage, that's +1/+3 and you untap the creature. It could be relevant, for instance, if the Ballista Charger is attacking and then there's a pump spell.
Attacking on its own here is interesting because I guess that does leave the option for double blocking for Gregory.
Yes, it does. So I'm a bit surprised by that.
Yeah, I think that if I had to choose which of my creatures to put in the bin, I would choose the Familiar rather than my 6/6. But we'll see what the follow-up is. All right, so an extra body on the board here for Pierre-Christophe Mondon. He has a 2/2 that does have its ability triggered. There is an artifact creature on the battlefield. But Nature's Way here means that that gets cleared out fairly quickly. And Vigilance means that there is an attack open here for Gregory. He chooses to take it. Kind of a free attack coming through there for him.
But this attack may still be lethal. Spireset Infiltrator will deal a damage when it is tapped, so that puts Gregory down to 2. Torch Gauntlet, well, making the Filigree Familiar even into a serviceable threat, even though it didn't really need it, but that should be lethal.
And there we have it. Pierre-Christophe Mondon able to take it down 2-0. These aggressive decks, Frank. We might be in for a quicker day than I anticipated.
Yeah, I mean, especially in Seal deck, I was expecting some crazy build-around strategies with all the sweet artifacts. But so far we haven't really seen that. It's just early drops crashing in fast and quick.
Well, that's the last of our live matches. You can see our feature match area clearing out, and that meaning, of course, that, well, we're going to have a little bit of a break from live Magic just for now. But that does not mean to say that you've got any reason to go anywhere. Plenty more to bring you, and Marshall and Maria will be able to bring you one of our time-shifted matches soon enough.
Play with new artifacts, crew fantastic vehicles, and invent your next ingenious deck with Kaladesh this weekend. Pre-release events are happening now on Magic Online. For more information, visit mtgo.com.
Kaladesh is now available on Magic Duels. Build endless deck combinations with more than 1,000 unique cards. Play through hours of story with 50 campaign missions. Play Magic Duels free today on Xbox One, Steam, iPad, and iPhone.
Welcome back to coverage of GP Atlanta. Maria Bartholdi here in the booth with Marshall Sutcliffe as we see some Kaladesh limited action. We're going to go right into more Magic for you. We've got a time walk match here. Chris Pikula versus Micheal Ardoin. So let's take a look at that match. All right, we're having a bit of a technical difficulty there. We'll try and bring you that match as soon as possible.
I saw my name on the screen, and I'm like, wait, what happened?
You're in the feature match area, Marshall.
I'm already in a match on Magic Online.
He's not lying.
I'm on the air, and now I'm also in the feature match? Like, what is going on here? I don't know.
You're the ultimate multitasker.
But it looks like we